The Sixers, of course, will be at the top of the news pretty much because they have all the money. They've got a lot of draft picks. So what will they do with all the money and all the draft picks? Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer covers the Philadelphia 76ers, and I would imagine, Keith, this is going to be a very busy offseason for all the Sixers news because they're going to be attached and tied to almost every name in some capacity, wouldn't we think?
Yeah. I mean, especially this summer. I mean, there's a lot of guys, who I mean, even if there are going to be certain dudes who don't want to come there, and they're going to try to attach their name to the 76ers because of the cap space.
Right, so you're a guy who's looking to get money from the team that you currently play for. You are going to be asking the Sixers for, hey, do you have an offer for me, so that they can go back and kind of pitch that to their team. Hey, the Sixers want me. What do you have?
Yeah, that's going to happen. It tends to happen that way with a lot of teams, especially a contending team with the Sixers because they have the cap. Like if it's a losing team, like let's say if it's Detroit, and you say, hey, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to go to Detroit. and the president's going to be like, all right, I'll pack your bags. Go ahead. Good luck. You know what I mean? But if it's the Sixers, where it's a team that, you can be an A1 type of guy and you can step in and help them win a championship, then the general manager will be like, maybe we need to sit down and talk a little bit.
Exactly. Well, let's start with a couple of things. We're going to hear a lot of names. You wrote over at the Inquirer about that the Sixers are prepared to give Butler a max extension if the Heat end up trading him. I mean, this kind of sounds like, whoa. Pretty big news there that the Sixers would be willing to do so. So what more do we know about that whole Butler, Miami, Philadelphia situation potentially?
Yeah, the thing is, Jimmy Butler wants to get an extension. Like, he has a 1 year left on his deal, but then he has a player option for the following season. But right now, he wants to get an extension, and if he gets an extension, what he would do is he wouldn't have a player option for next year. What it would be is it would be this year and two more, basically, essentially. So he's in line to make 48. Miami doesn't want to talk to him right now. And Jimmy feels like, hey, I've been a good soldier. I led you guys to 2 NBA Finals appearances. Since I've been here, you guys had the 5th most wins in the NBA, and, on and on. Why don't you reward me? So the question is, a lot of people think if they don't look out for him, they could lose him next year in free agency because he feels like you guys didn't take care of me like I've been taking care of you. So that's where it comes in. Well, if we're going to lose him, we might as well trade him, right? And that's where the 76ers come in at, because they're going to be, what he wants from a team is he's going to want that max extension wherever he gets traded at. And let's face it, the Sixers are looking for a 3rd star. So that's where they come in at. And let's to be honest with you, yes, that is a big story. But in order to get Jimmy, to get him to be someone that's going to be committed to you, you are going to have to give him that max extension. So basically, he's going to make the $48 million this year, and then he'll make $113 million over the next 2 years, the final 2 years of that contract. So that's where they stand. Now, again, it's up to Pat Riley. Like, we don't know if I know Jimmy loves it in South Beach. He loves South Florida, right? He loves South Beach too, probably, right?
Yep.
But it's one of those things where, I guess the question is, if you're Pat Riley and you don't want to pay him, and then you got to say, well, maybe he's just trying to use this as leverage to see if he can get the contract extension. But if it's deeper than that, are you willing to lose him and not getting anything in return? If he just leaves as a free agent next year. So there's a lot to digest right now.
Yeah. So essentially, the Sixers are in this situation like, hey, if he becomes available, we're interested and we would extend him. So there's a lot of pieces that have to come into place here. But if the Heat were willing to listen for an offer, the Sixers would say, we're interested and we would give you that extension. So he would be a Sixer next year and then 2 more?
Yeah, he would be. He would be. Like if they make that trade, he'll be a Sixer next year, and then the following 2 seasons. And a lot of people look at it like it's crazy. I mean, we all know about the Paul George situation, but Paul George would really like. I mean, it depends. People feel like Paul George could sign an extension now for 3 seasons, but he wants 4 years, right? So if you look at it, it's one of those things where you're actually coming off of less money over the duration of the contract by getting Jimmy Butler if you do that.
Well,
but again, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen for it to happen.
Yeah, but real quick, Keith, too, I mean, if you're a free agent in this offseason, you're kind of getting the raw deal because when that television deal comes in, the next one, some of these guys are going to probably be making $60, $70 million. So would that be a bargain for the Sixers to give a Jimmy Butler that kind of deal this offseason?
You know what? That's a great point. It would be. But also they have this new rule now where if they got like, I think it's a 38-year rule. So if you're 38 years old, like towards the duration of the end of that contract that they will probably get next year, it's like your money of that last year isn't going to be like what it is. That's why if Paul George signs a 4-year deal, he can only make $9 million more in LA than he would other places. So it gives you no incentive. But you are correct. It would be, with that deal, it would be a great incentive to get someone. But something else that a lot of people aren't talking about as well, even though that new money is coming up, this is the year that you have a lot of cap space, right? And what I mean by that is the Sixers, because one thing we keep talking about Maxey. Everybody talks about Maxey, right? He's about to get this big deal. The Sixers have close to $65 million available, and so you can get a guy now, but next year you're going to give Maxey, a $200 million contract over 4 or 5 years. But here's the deal. What about Joel? Joel's going to be up for an extension as well. So when you factor in the money that both of these guys are going to make, it's going to be tight down the road. So if you have the time to give somebody a max contract right now, this would be the season to do it.
So, I mean, if the Sixers were able to sit down with Keith Pompey and kind of say, these are the hierarchy of what we would like to happen, what do you think they would say?
You mean talking about they would tell me?
Well, if they were saying
the hierarchy right now, I think right now in the hierarchy, because the hierarchy would be Paul George and LeBron James, right? And the reason being is because you look at the things that they both can do, and they're both going to be free agents. So it's like you're not basically having to give up draft assets. You're not having to work out a trade or anything like that. You just go out there and get these guys, right? So I feel like that would be that. But I also think there's something inside of them that's looking at Jimmy Butler and saying, man, I think we messed up, a couple of years ago. I think we really did. Now, the question is it 5 years too late? But I do think that when you look at a guy like Paul George, who, and the one thing I think that we have to remember is that Tyrese Maxey is ascending. He's getting better at each year. He's still a young player. So it's going to be pretty soon that he is going to be the face of the franchise, right? But with him being there, like you look at him as a D Wade, so to speak, when he was in his prime, playing with Alonzo Mourning and Shaq and guys like that, Gary Payton, those type of guys. So you look at Maxey and see how he's ascending, and then you say, okay, well, if I have a Jimmy Butler or Paul George as a third star and all they have to do is defend, Jimmy brings that playoff Jimmy. We also have Joel, who's going to take up a presence that where you can't trap and do things to these other guys. Hey, that's a pretty good punch. I just think that what people are doing, and I get it, they're looking at it like these dudes are 30-something years old. You're going to give them a max contract. What's going to happen? But I think that you're thinking, if you're the Sixers, you got to think that Maxey's going to continue this, and Joel, is still going to be the toughest guard in the NBA if he's healthy. You know what I mean? But me personally, I think that just because the whole Jimmy Butler thing is you have to get Miami to agree upon it. Last year, we all thought they were going to get Dame Lillard. That didn't work out, right? Other things. So I feel like if you feel real confident and they feel like they still have a chance with Paul George, I feel like that's your number one option if the Sixers.
We're talking with Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Sixers offseason, not quite there, but it's going to start amping up soon here. So the Paul George stuff we've been hearing for a while, you've been done a lot of reporting there. You just mentioned LeBron James as something. So is that a pipe dream? Is that realistic? Do they think they have a shot to make – I mean, he was a free agent a couple of years ago. Were they interested then? Would he have any – where do you think that LeBron would sit in terms of his interest here and their interest in him?
You know, there is definitely some interest in LeBron. There definitely is. You know, the thing about LeBron, from the people that I talk to, and who knows, I'm saying this now, who knows, next thing you know, they're going to announce LeBron James is coming to the Sixers. But here's the deal. I think that the thought around the league is that LeBron is going to stay with the Lakers. The Lakers feel that LeBron is going to stay with the Lakers. The thing is that everybody thinks that LeBron is using his leverage to make sure that they do right by his son, right? That's what it is, that they do right by his son. And with that being said, like, you think about it, LeBron is living in L.A., you know, and I know, you know, he's a billionaire. He could go anywhere for 8 months and then come back and be home. But he has a lot of business ventures. You know, his son is a high school, the younger son, middle child is a high school standout there. You know, do you want to move the family? Do you want to keep them there? You know, so it seems like there's a lot of things going on. But let's face it, LeBron has done this before. He uses what he does, his power and the fear of losing him to get what he wants. I mean, he used the Sixers before. Remember when the ownership group hopped on a plane, they flew to L.A. to meet with LeBron, but LeBron didn't show up. He wasn't there. It was Rich Paul. And then hours later, he commits with the Lakers. So it's one of those things where in the back of my mind, I'm asking myself, is LeBron James serious or you know, about wanting to play with his kid? Or is he just setting the record straight to the Lakers? Like, look, y'all know what to do. If y'all want to keep me, you got to do what I ask.
That would be interesting, you know, to see LeBron with Maxey and Embiid, because, you know, the league seems to be in this evolution of these younger players starting to take that. You know, you got Luka, you got Ant-Man. Even the Celtics players are kind of young. I mean, they've been around for so long. But the Sixers are this weird. They got this really young guy in Maxey. How many more good championship years does Embiid have?
You know what? It's crazy. I feel like Embiid. I feel like Embiid is. You know, it's a tough question because dudes have been playing for a long time. But when you look at his injury history and you look at everything, you know, I feel like it's not as long as he would like. You know what I mean? I feel like that he's in the prime of his career right now. I feel like it's something that they need to get taken care of in a couple years. I do. I mean, maybe give him 3 years or something like that. I hate to say that. Sometimes you hear guys playing longer, but when you think of the injury history, you have to say that, and it's not a knock on him, but he has an old body for a 30-year-old. You know what I mean? Because of that. So, you know, I feel like, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the reason why, you know, the 76ers are like, hey, yeah, we're going to get we're going to get a guy right now that we think who can help the team now. Like, this is the time. The window is now. And who knows? In a couple of years, it's probably going to be dwindling. It's going to be gone.
Well, that's the thing. And your point is right. I agree with you. That, like, 3 years, you might say he could play like an MVP level for 3 more solid years, which means it almost seems like, okay, do you get that veteran player who can take 2 or 3 really good shots at it while you got Joel? And is the option of the guys we're just talking about, Paul George, LeBron James, Jimmy Butler, do those guys fit that mold of, hey, if we're going to take 2 or 3 big swings, those are the guys we got to go after? Or do you try to find multiple guys and say Maxey and Embiid with like your next group of guys?
Yeah, you can try to find multiple guys, but see, the thing is with that is you'll find multiple guys. Of course, they're not going to get the contracts that the guys are getting now. I don't think we'll see another Tobias Harris situation, right? Where they're paying a guy to be the third star, because, other things. I think they want to go out and get like an all-star guy, right? But with that being said, aside from that, I can see them getting multiple guys, so to speak, filling out a roster, being role players, give them a couple years deal, this and that, because they realize the thing is when you give a max player like, let's say, James Harden, they had James Harden. Some people might say that James Harden was past his prime, right? But he was still making $30-something million. Well, you were able to still trade him, get a couple draft picks, pick swaps, and get players with expiring contracts that enabled you to have all this cap space and then all these draft assets. So the Sixers feel like if I go out there and I get a max player and that player doesn't pan out, we can trade him. But if we get other lesser players, we're not going to be able to do that. Now, again, it's going to be a little bit tougher for them, but they will still be able to have, like on draft night, they're going to have like at least they're going to have 5 first-round picks, and they're going to have a bunch of pick swaps. So what they could do is, if they don't get what they want, they can go, like you said, get build out a roster, and they'll still have several of those picks. And then hopefully you can make a trade later on, or you can do some other things. So there is some flexibility, but I do believe that their best bet would be to probably go out there and get a big name guy who they feel confident with, who can help win the championship.
Keith Pompey from the Inquirer. Real quick, you got Oubre, Batum, Lowry, Melton, Hield. Any early indication on if they want to bring any of those guys back, or is it more, it depends on who becomes available?
You know what? I think I think Lowry, Batum, and Kelly Oubre Jr. are 3 guys that they would really like to bring back, right? You know what I mean? I think that when you look at Lowry, you can say that, Maxey towards the end, there was some maturation in his game. And the thing that I liked, I got a little upset, come on, Kyle, they got you here to be the point. But it was one of those things where there was a lot of times Kyle would get the ball, or the ball would be inbounds, and he's pointing, give it to Maxey. And he's over there helping them direct. And it's kind of like, it reminded me of, you're going to driver's school and like you're driving, but the instructor is on the other side telling you what to do. And I think that we saw some maturation as him as a point guard since Kyle came now, right? Also, I think that Nico Batum, of all the players in the playoffs, since the playoffs began, he took the biggest leap in my opinion. Like, he was the guy that showed that will to win. He stepped up. He had a couple nasty dunks. He was hitting big threes. He played defense. He did a lot of great things. And then I think Kelly Oubre is the type of guy who came here and he just showed out. Like, he was a dude who, the problem that Tobias Harris had at times was he didn't know how to adjust when he didn't have the ball. Kelly was like, forget that. I'm getting putbacks. I'm crashing the boards. I'm doing whatever I can. I'm going to play the best defense I've ever played in my life. So I feel like those are 3 assets that they can have moving forward. One, the veteran point guard who can continue to help with Maxey's maturation. Another guy you have, if you're going to bring in a third star, you're going to need a forward who doesn't care about shooting the ball, but when he's wide open, he's going to stick a 3 and he's going to do everything. And it doesn't hurt that you are great friends with Joel Embiid. And then Kelly Oubre, you need that aggressive guy who has that will to win, who just doesn't care, and he knows how to coexist and get his own shot when he's not getting plays called for him because of Maxey and Embiid, being so ball dominant. So to me, those are the three guys right there.
Last thing for Keith, on draft night, would that be the night that if you're going to make a deal for a Butler, it would happen on draft night?
Yeah, I believe so, because on draft night is when, right now they have 3 first-round picks to trade future, right? And they have these pick swaps. But on draft night, it's going to go up to 5 first-round picks. And I feel like that would be the best night to do it. You know what I mean? The best night to do it because you have more to give up. And let's face it, especially if you want to get a third team involved, let's just say if you want to go after Butler, right? If they're serious about that, what you do is you got 3 teams. You say, hey, look, you give us Butler, they'll give you a player, and we'll give you the picks.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that's how it will work out.
All right. Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Before we run, which guy are you, A or B?
Oh, man. I'm A.
Oh, I knew it, you Pitt guy. No way.
You're the proper one, huh?
I can't get too much. You got to go B. Got to go B in this picture.
I'm a slob.
All right, buddy. Good to see you, man. Go Mountaineers.
I was about to say, you beat me before I could say hell to Pitt. Go ahead, my man.
Take care. All right, buddy. Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer, everybody. Check out his story at Inquirer.com. He says that the Sixers would give a max extension to Jimmy Butler if they could trade for him. So, in other words, as he talked about, let's kind of go back to the beginning of the conversation. If the Heat are willing to trade Butler, now Butler says, hey, I want an extension. The Heat say, not giving it to you. Okay, I want to be traded. The Sixers say, we're interested. Okay, Jimmy will go there, but you got to give him the extension. According to Keith, sources telling him the Sixers would, in fact, say, we'll give you the extension. Here's the part of the conversation that I think has to be kind of examined a little closer. The extension that Butler's looking for is not a 5-year extension. It's a 3-year. It's this year and then 2 more. I think that's pretty manageable with Embiid's timeline. That, like, if you have to give him one of these 5-year max deals, that's a different situation. This is, hey, we'll take a 3-year crack with Jimmy Butler. I think you could do a lot worse.